I'm here with David Himmelgreen, who we are very thrilled has been one of our recipients of our Research That Matters grants. We have 4 anthropologists this year who have received grants, and we want to talk in depth about the projects that are being funded through Office of Community Engagement and Partnerships. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit more, David, about the project that you're working on this summer and actually for the next 8 months regarding the school backpack program. So can you tell us a little bit about it? And then I have loads of questions because it's a fascinating study.
Sure, be happy to. So this is a project that we are doing with Feeding America Tampa Bay. That's our partner in this evaluation, and Feeding America provides the bulk of food assistance in the Tampa Bay area. In addition to giving out food, they run different types of programs, and one of the programs is the backpack program. This is a program where they give food out to school kids, and, usually on the weekend, and the kids can take that food home, and the hope is that this helps to mitigate food insecurity in the household. There hasn't been a whole lot of research on the effectiveness of backpack programs. There is some anecdotal evidence that suggests that they work, but there hasn't been a lot in terms of research. So we want to do this systematically to see how well the program is working and where we can make improvements. There's usually a variety of food that goes in the backpacks, and there has been some tinkering with that. For example, at the agency we're going to study, which is the Boys and Girls Club of Dover, in terms of making the foods more culturally appropriate, because the target population we're working with are mostly kids whose parents are migrant farm workers from Mexico.
Well, what I think is interesting about that as well is that their parents are providing food to all of the rest of us, and yet they're food insecure themselves. So there's a real irony there with the fact that these are migrant farm workers unable to provide enough food for their own families. So what do you think about that?
Oh, it's a huge problem. I mean, for all the food that we have as a country, there's a very high prevalence of food insecurity or lack of access to, appropriate, high quality foods. And even as the economy improves, the rate of food insecurity continues to remain high. So it affects lots of segments of the society, but in particular, low-income folks, and including migrant laborers who, as you say, pick the very food that most of us eat, yet they're experiencing high levels of food insecurity. Feeding America does a wonderful work, and but they don't necessarily have the capacity to conduct the research. But this is a great opportunity where we can work together with them to look at the effectiveness of a program and make some recommendations, and maybe even go beyond the recommendations, but actually implement some recommendations to possibly improve the program if it needs to be improved.
And I think it will make donors much more comfortable as well to know that there's been this study and that you've been able to make recommendations. So I think it is really important to kind of grow a program like this.
It's not that difficult to get donors to provide, for example, the food. Everybody sees the value in food, and this is a way of helping. But when you ask donors, for example, for funding to evaluate whether or not something is working, it's not the sexy part of it. So they're less inclined to do that. And we know, as far as research goes, but also in terms of policy, you need to have evidence to show that something is working or not working in order to get more resources to deal with an issue. If you don't have that data, you don't have solid evidence, you can talk until you're blue in the face, and it really doesn't make that much of a difference. So this is one way of being able to accomplish that.
Another really important factor is, I think, what we've talked about, the idea that this is a Bandaid or a short-term solution. So hopefully your research will help uncover a lot of the other underlying issues that are taking place. That's why someone would need a backpack in the first place. So we can look at some of those issues and hopefully help people see that there are larger issues at stake.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And one of the things that I've been working on a lot with and talking with the executive director of Feeding America is to make sure we get the word out that people understand that food insecurity is a chronic condition and there are consequences for it. So kids who are, you know, growing rapidly, both their physical development and emotional, and you know their brains are growing. There are these critical periods of growth where if they're not eating well, and it doesn't have to be severe malnutrition, it can have long-term implications for your ability to perform well in school, to be successful in a job, and to be a productive adult. So food assistance is a Band-Aid. It's one we need to provide, but we need to look at also the kind of longer term implications of this Band-Aid and you know how it solves a problem in the short term, but it doesn't address the longer term issue of chronic food insecurity.
So, what do you think it is? I mean, food is so essential to all of us, and it seems as though when we had our sustainable food conference, there was a real sort of resonant factor to it that everybody wanted to be a part of it. And sometimes I think it's difficult for people to talk about issues surrounding poverty, but maybe coming at it through food is a good way to do that. What do you think about that?
Oh, definitely. So people, in my own experience in doing research for a couple of decades now, people always love to talk about food. People don't necessarily want to talk about how difficult the situations are, or they might be living in poverty, or the fact that they can't feed their family what they would like to feed them. However, the entry point is having a general discussion about food and the meaning of food, and then maybe addressing the issues of access and availability. Once people become comfortable with that, they open up and are willing to talk about what they confront on a daily basis.
I really feel that by spring semester it will be so great to revisit some of the issues that we talked about during the Sustainable Food Conference. And so I'm hoping we'll find that kind of energy again as people continue their research in this area. Is there anything you're particularly looking forward to addressing again through the sustainable food sort of movement?
Right. Well, first off, the conference we had last January I thought was amazing. The turnout was great. There was a lot of positive energy. I thought there was a lot of good ideas being exchanged. And I've been working in Tampa for a long time and at USF for 15 years now, and it was the first time to pull together a whole bunch of people who are interested in some of the same issues. So I'm looking forward to that, again, having that opportunity, but then also sharing some of our findings that we come up with people who come to hear our talk, and then to hear the results from the other projects that are going on as well. And I think sometimes there is a lot of overlap that goes on, and the communication lines are not always good, but this is a conference that helps to facilitate open up those lines of communication.
Well, thank you so much, and we're really looking forward to hearing more. And I think, again, this essential nature of food is so crucial to us, so I think it's really important in building community.
Thank you.
Thank you.